guys, it's Dr. Denney from Four Paws at Fulshear Veterinary Clinic, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about heartworm disease and how you can know what symptoms to look for, treatment, and prevention. Helping me today is going to be Maddie. She's behind the camera, so she's going to start asking me some questions.
Dr. Denney, what is heartworm disease and how can it affect my dog?
So heartworm disease is when there are worms on the dog's heart. So it's a parasite, and the worms go into dogs' hearts, and that's why they're called heartworms.
How do dogs catch heartworms?
So heartworms are transmitted by mosquitoes. So we live here in Texas, so we have a high population of mosquitoes, which means every time that your dog, even just going out to potty, we can be exposed to mosquitoes. So I get the questions all the time, but Dr. Denney, my dog only goes out to potty and then they come right back inside. They can't have gotten heartworms. I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but just on the walk to my car for 10, 15 seconds, I can get bit by a mosquito. I have sweet blood. So just by doing that, you know that your dog's being exposed every time they go outside for a walk, and all it takes is one bite and your dog can contract one of the larvae, which within 6 months can develop into heartworm disease.
Can heartworms be prevented?
They can, yay! Veterinarians love this question because guess what? Every veterinarian that you go to in the United States is going to talk to you about heartworm prevention because that's how important it is. It's very easily preventable. There are injections that you can give every 6 months or every 12 months. There are oral preventatives that you can give once a month. It's very easily preventable and very expensive to treat, so much easier to prevent the disease than to allow it to happen and then have to go ahead and treat it.
What are signs in my dog that would indicate they may have heartworms?
So often you're not going to know in the very beginning stages unless there's a high worm burden. If there's a high worm burden or that the heartworms have been in the heart for a really long time and they have damaged the heart, then we can see coughing. They can get tired a little more easy. So if your dog usually goes around the block 3 or 4 times, no problem, but you go around the block 1 time and they're just saying like, oh my gosh, I'm completely gassed, I'm exhausted, that would be a good time to come in, and especially if you're not on heartworm prevention, to have your pet tested. So coughing is going to be probably your number 1 symptom and the earliest symptom that you'll see.
What are some middle to late stage symptoms of heartworms?
So collapse, unfortunately, coughing up blood, which sounds really scary because it is scary. In end-stage heartworm disease, you can also see port wine urine. It's called cavil syndrome, and unfortunately that does indicate that there's so many worms in the heart that death is very imminent.
What can be done to stabilize my dog's heartworm disease?
So go to your veterinarian. That's step 1. Let's go to your veterinarian, get tested for heartworms, see if we have them or not. Stabilization is going to involve oxygen therapy if we need, medications, heartworm treatment, because you can treat the dog in really severe cases like that cavil syndrome I was talking about, where there's so many worms that the heart literally cannot pump enough blood. A cardiologist can actually go in with a scope through the jugular vein and remove manually the heartworms.
How will a veterinarian diagnose my dogs with heartworms?
So there's 3 different ways that are the most common. 2 you do in hospital, so running a heartworm test. It's a simple blood test. It takes a few drops of blood and you can run a heartworm test and it comes back positive or negative. Another way we can check is the worms in the heart are adult worms. They do have babies, and the baby little larvae like to swim around in the bloodstream, and they're called microfilaria. So we can actually see that under the microscope in a smear of blood. And then the third way is you can even see it on a cardiac echo. So you put an ultrasound probe on the chest and look into the heart. Sometimes you can see the worms flipping around.
Why is early detection and diagnosis of heartworms so important?
Because we don't want our dogs to die. So that's like probably the most important reason, right? Because worms in the heart create irreparable heart damage, and the longer those worms are in the heart, the more damaged the heart is. So to protect your pet and to have them live the longest that they can, preventing damage to the heart is going to be really important. So we would want to prevent the disease versus letting them get the disease and then treating it. So preventing early death is going to be the biggest reason, which I would, if you're watching this video, you obviously care about your dog. So I would strongly recommend being on heartworm prevention year-round, forever and ever and ever and ever. Okay.